Thank you, Chair, and thank you to each of the witnesses. Sharing your own personal experiences and stories is very important. And I want to share a story. I won't do as good a job as y'all because this is a Virginian story, but it's not mine. But I want to share it. It was a news article that, Madam Chair, I'd like to ask be introduced in the record from NBC News last week. Jamie Abrams, and I'll read an excerpt from this. What moving from Kentucky to Virginia after I was diagnosed with cancer reveals about Roe. After teaching Roe versus Wade as a family law professor, I experienced the stunningly painful irony of reading the leaked Supreme Court opinion in Dobbs on the day I was diagnosed with invasive breast cancer. Overnight, at age 44, I became a person who would need an abortion if pregnant because cancer treatments would compromise a healthy birth and delay needed cancer care. I also became someone like other hormone-positive breast cancer patients who was advised to discontinue hormonal contraception because it could stimulate the growth of cancer cells. In the aftermath of Roe's being overturned, supporters of the move want to pretend that abortion access can be surgically extracted from women's health care decision-making as a whole. Nothing can be further from the truth. Since the Dobbs leak, which has made it clear what the conservative-leaning court was poised to do, I have switched gears rapidly between being a reproductive rights scholar and a breast cancer patient. I also switched employment from Kentucky to Virginia at a time when a woman's constitutional right to bodily autonomy has been stripped away. This move across state lines and into a different area of women's health care has revealed a searing reality. We now live in a world of vastly divergent healthcare systems for women. When I was diagnosed with cancer, the last thing on my mind were pregnancy, birth control, and abortion. Yet nearly all of my medical appointments, tests, and surgery itself were predicated on controlling reproduction and being able to terminate a pregnancy if needed. Cancer care also requires that I share my reproductive medical history about prior pregnancies, the number of live births I've had, the medications I've taken, what surgical procedures I've had, and who my other providers are. I answer honestly, not worried now whether my answers are under surveillance by regulators or law enforcement. As a breast cancer patient in Northern Virginia, I have thankfully found unbounded compassion, empathy, dignity, privacy, and vitalizing human connection. But according to Kentucky's trigger law banning abortion, I would lose all decision-making autonomy and be subject to a doctor's discretion about whether an abortion was necessary to prevent the substantial risk of death. Is stage 1 breast cancer enough? Stage 2? What relevance are my 2 children for whom I desperately seek the best prognosis and longevity for myself? Does the law require me to endure the state-compelled progression of cancer? The answers to these questions would be entirely unclear. In reality, doctors would treat me under an amorphous cloud of state-imposed liability because the Kentucky law makes it a Class D felony to provide abortions outside these exceptions. I'd like to ask you, Dr. Brandy, I was very, very struck by this. And it strikes me that this is probably not an unusual concern or case.
Thank you, Senator, for the question. And you're absolutely right that I think many people before all of this happened didn't really understand the full impact of how this is going to radically change healthcare and put our healthcare system potentially into chaos. I know as a doctor, I live in the gray, meaning that patients don't read the textbook. They don't come in with a very clear-cut answer as far as what to do. All of our care is tailored to that individual person. And conditions like cancer have a unique treatment based on that individual person, and that involves the conversation about pregnancy options and whether or not to delay pregnancy or whether or not a patient should terminate a pregnancy if they are diagnosed with cancer or wait several months to get treatment.
The notion that we would say to someone with a cancer diagnosis, hey, just move to another state. I mean, just move to another state. This author could do that. A lot of people can't. People of low income can't. People of color would have a harder time doing that. And the notion of the court in Dobbs that we'll just rely on your state legislatures that where women are dramatically underrepresented, where people of color are dramatically underrepresented. In Congress right now, 26% of Congress is women. That ranks us 76th in the world. We are below the global average of women in Congress. So the notion to tell somebody who is politically less powerful, oh, just rely on your legislature. Well, that's not going to give you comfort. That's why the 14th Amendment was passed, to protect people who the majority would not protect. Equal protection, even if the majority won't give it to you in the legislature, you're entitled to it. Protection of your liberty, even if the legislature won't give it to you as an American, you are entitled to it. I can't imagine a scenario where we're just going to be casually telling cancer patients and those with other conditions that they just have to lump it and move to another state.